There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who are wrong, and those who think 1996's storm-chasing extravaganza Twister is one of the most entertaining thrillers of that decade. Now, if you fall into the first camp, first of all, congratulations, you're right. But also, your reaction to the concept of a 30 years removed sequel to this classic of disaster cinema was probably why. I mean, it was certainly my reaction. Whereas everyone else, it was more along the lines of, why ruin a good thing? What was this film going to do that the first one didn't do better? But after that first trailer, I went from yee fucking nah to yee fucking ha, man. Glenn Powell front and center as the charismatic wild child storm chaser a la the sorely underutilized Cary Elwes in the first movie? Lee Isaac Chung, who made one of the most profound movies about middle America with 2020's beautiful Minari, stepping into the blockbuster arena with, sure, a disaster movie, but also a movie about one of the predominant issues facing the parts of the US that he hails from? I mean, sign me the F up. I'm already in. Like, that sounds interesting. I knew I was going to be in for a throwback summer blockbuster, the 40X event of the summer, and you know what? I was right. Twisters isn't just a fun time at the movies. It's the perfect summer movie. Yeah, it's a dumb film and it's fun, but it's got a bit more on its mind than I was anticipating. It makes you feel like you're allowed to think, that you're allowed to explore so many more avenues of creative storytelling again in a blockbuster like this. Just like how you can explore math, science, and computer programming with this video sponsor, Brilliant. You know them, you love them. Brilliant is one of my favorite sponsors that has ever been featured on this channel, and for good reason. I genuinely love them and their service. They're one of my favorite platforms out there, specifically for learning new skills because it's designed to be uniquely effective for each individual that uses it. Brilliant might not have a course on how to plant your vehicle in the eye of a tornado and survive, but they have recently launched a ton of equally as fun courses on collecting data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better-informed decisions, which isn't that the core ethos of Twisters as a film? Like, come on. This content is perfect for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis with a fully built-out suite of new content from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. Learn how to parse and visualize massive data sets to make them easier to interpret. Gain insight by working with real data sets from sources like Starbucks, Twitter, I guess X now, but you don't call it that, Spotify, and more. And if all of this sounds like a swirling tornado of information being thrown at you at once, don't worry. It's not. Each course welcomes learners at every level and teaches you the specified skill set in a way that's both engaging and interactive to help you learn the things you actually want to learn. Brilliant helps you build an understanding of the material from the ground up by closing every lesson with a hands-on problem to solve. It helps you not only learn, but retain concepts by building your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorization. Right now, you can try Brilliant for free for 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/filmspeak or by clicking the link in the description of this video. And the best thing is, all of you that do decide to give this a try will receive 20% off an annual subscription as well. Make sure to go to brilliant.org/filmspeak, and thank you so much to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Chemistry.
Now just think about this.
That's what makes Twisters work. The film has a nice structure, the creativity levels are just right, and the cape of this film to dominate the box office is evident right from the start. Glenn Powell is going around middle America as a cowboy scientist with charisma flowing out of his ears, and when he meets with Daisy Edgar Jones playing a perfect lead for this movie, seriously, please cast her in more things, especially as the lead. She is just so endearing and charming, with emotional depth and a genuine love for what she's doing. It explodes on the screen, creating some of the most authentic chemistry that isn't common in blockbusters nowadays. Like, seriously, just let two gorgeous people who are great at acting play off of one another. That we're missing this. I've loved this. Twisters in many ways feels like the natural successor to Top Gun Maverick. And I'm not just saying that because Glenn Powell is in both movies, no. And it's not just because it's appealing to the wider movie-going audience, but because they are focused on similar themes and have a similar structure. When the the credits began to roll and I saw that Joseph Kosinski had a story by credit on this, I mean, it just made perfect sense. It has his signature brand of heart, and I mean, even some of the filmmaking techniques, not that he was really involved in that aspect, but more than that, in both films, we get to watch people who truly love what they do, who have dedicated their lives to something that on paper seems so dangerous, but on screen is, oh, so awesome to watch unfold. The films are even similar structurally. Both, more or less, play out like a sports movie. There are these two competing factions chasing the storms for opposing reasons. There's the big loss or big injury moment, and then the bounce back victory. It all works so well. It's a great way to apply that formula. And along the way, the very real conflict between scientists, meteorologists, storm chasers, people who are genuinely trying to do research, and those who are just there to get a thrill is explored. It allows us to feel that super genuine heart that beats at the center of both of these films. All of this plays into the fact that Twisters is a disaster movie that doesn't really focus too much on the disaster and more on the interpersonal drama and the larger commentary being made on environmental issues. Usually a disaster movie has that disaster front and center, and in this, the tornadoes are present, but they aren't depicted as these massive, ominous, borderline villainous entities like storms in, The Day After Tomorrow, or even the tornadoes in the original Twister. These are natural phenomena, and the way they're shot shows them as these miracles of nature, as something that's not inherently evil. It's kind of beautiful, but it's scary at the same time. They just exist. And all of these characters have some relationship to the storm in one way, shape, or form. If anything, the presence of the tornadoes is a unifier, bringing together people from different backgrounds, social status, beliefs, and locations. When it comes down to it, we're all people, and we're all scared of the destruction something like a tornado can bring about. It affects all of us. The beauty and mystery is something we can all marvel in, and it's also something we can work together to overcome. The film is very clearly meditating on the environmental crisis we currently face, and how these things should be a common unifier. These aren't political issues, these are human obstacles we need to overcome. We should devote resources to better understanding the things we don't understand and the things we can do to prevent lives from being upended because of an unwillingness to act. We can run from them all we want, but eventually, the storm catches up to us all. We have to confront it head on. Pulling on this same thread, the film also criticizes those who are either unwilling to acknowledge what is right in front of us, or worse, those who see it but do nothing to prevent it, instead taking advantage of the capitalist opportunity that emerges from a natural disaster with nothing but dollar signs in their eyes. Whether it's real estate moguls, private companies, venture capitalists, you name it, people like that who have a vested interest in the destruction that occurs because of these phenomena, because it allows them to profit in a way they couldn't otherwise by exploiting a tragedy, swooping in on a white horse to appear as though they're helping people in desperate need of assistance, but really taking advantage of said desperation as a means to up their bottom line. In the film, this is done by Riggs, a real estate mogul and venture capitalist who's invested in Javi's tornado tracking plan as a means to monitor an incoming storm, do nothing, and then offer to buy the land, the homes of the people in these small towns at a reduced rate, knowing full well the people are in a financial bind and need money. In so doing, he's able to tear down the character of the land, build new suburbs, sell them off to the next sucker, and repeat the cycle. Javi has fooled himself into thinking it's helping people move on with their lives, and that's true to an extent, but when his resources could have been used to prevent the tragedy from happening at all, it's hard to see his actions as anything but self-administered penance for the tragedy that befalls him and Kate at the beginning of the film. There's also a great jab early on in the film about how the government spends countless dollars, devotes numerous resources to defense and military when it could be allocating some of that to environmental protection. Because they don't, the private sector swoops in there and is able to do what they want. They have to take things into their own hands, and they clearly don't have the best intentions of the people in mind, and so nothing changes. Instead of spending millions of dollars on conflicts abroad, the film explores these natural obstacles we face as a thing that is not only directly affecting people domestically, a real problem that requires the government's attention and aid that would actually benefit its people, but as something we all have in common. Something that shouldn't be politicized or turned into a means for profit, but something that can bring us together during a time when we need it most. Now, yes, the tornadoes represent all of these larger environmental issues the film is musing on, but it also is a very real personal obstacle for the characters. It's trauma, fear in its most raw form. For Kate, it is the fear of failure, of trying to be this wide-eyed young idealist, befalling a tragedy because of her work, and then surviving with the guilt of all of that and afraid to confront it. The same goes for Javi, although his guilt stems from staying on the sidelines, being too afraid to get involved. For Tyler, the storm represents the same fear that Kate feels, but it came to him at a much younger age. For him, the storm is a general fear of the unknown, and as he says in the film, it represents the great mysteries of our world, an intersection of the divine and something more scientific that we know everything about and yet can't explain its existence. The storm is fear incarnate. Kate has to come to learn to not let her fear and guilt dictate her actions, but rather strengthen her resolve. She abandons a very real thesis that can not only save lives, but change the world, make a difference for her community and countless other communities affected by the onslaught of tornadoes ravaging Oklahoma. She allows her pain and loss to dissuade her from continuing her pursuit, calling it nothing but a childish dream. But that child's dream is precisely the thing that makes all the difference. If we continued to accept the world for what it is instead of working to make it a better place, no advancements, quality of life, anything really would change. We'd live in a dark abyss. This also really beautifully ties into the environmental stuff I brought up earlier, because for as much as things seem futile, so much apathy, ignorance, greed, ego when it comes to environmental issues, we need people to continue dreaming and fighting and doing whatever work they can to combat these very real problems. By holding on to those idealistic dreams we have as young people, we're able to channel that into very real advancements and change. As Twisters muses on this idea of fear, it asks, how do you fight your fear? What do you do with it? Eventually concluding that it's not something to run away from, but rather something to take you to a new place. There is a fear of environmental change and feeling of hopelessness, but that fear should be funneled into something productive. It should cause you to chase that fear and overcome it. There's also the idea, if you really want to look on a macro level, of Lee Isaac Chung going from his surprise indie sensation in Minari and then immediately getting swept up in the world of blockbuster filmmaking. Not only that, but making a sequel to a beloved and iconic 90s disaster film. His fearlessness with which he tackled Twisters is the core ethos of the film. What Chung does so well in depicting tornadoes in this film is revealing the disaster from the micro to the macro level, drawing from Spielberg disaster films like War of the Worlds. The emphasis is always on the human cast, and though crazy shit does happen when the Twister comes barreling into town, the Twister never reaches the same absurdities as a storm in a Roland Emmerich movie, for instance. It never leaves reality entirely, and is more concerned with how the storm is affecting the characters. There's no personification of the natural phenomena. I think if I had to boil it down to one word, I would say that Tyler, and perhaps the rest of the team since he's the leader, is directionless. And when he meets Kate, he comes to understand that he could be doing a bit more scientifically to help research and combat these tornadoes from ravaging the land, which is a great contrast to Kate, because she's there doing research along with Javi, and they seem to be under the assumption that simply gathering research is enough, that if they stay on the sidelines and just capture data, that eventually get to the powers that be and everything will be all right. These storms affect tons of innocent lives. And sure, maybe Tyler and his gang are still going off into storms and firing missiles for flash and substance, but once the storms are over, the team is on the ground helping people directly in the warpath, giving them food and giving them back whatever remains of the life so unjustly stolen from them. This makes the storm chasers have a lot more depth to them than what you would probably expect. While the setup at the beginning is the catalyst for some real compelling character drama, I'd be lying if I said it hooked me right away. And I think after the tragedy that befalls Kate, I'm much more invested in her and the journey she goes on in the film. The beginning is sort of the tip of the hat to the tone and feel of the original Twister before going into something more thoughtful. And it allows us to see the world through Kate's eyes, her perspective of everything going on, and how she views people like Tyler and his gang. She used to be them, and I think she's projecting a bit, seeing more of the ego, carelessness, and just raw excitement that she and her friends had when they were doing their experiments on the storm without a thought for what could happen next. That's what she thinks the storm chasers are, and it's kind of cool when it turns out to not be that. Kate is grappling with the insecurity of being too hurt to help, whereas Tyler is someone who enjoys making a show out of something so horrific. Kate eventually peels back Tyler's layers and comes to understand that the show is a means to elicit interest in something people would otherwise try to ignore or be too afraid to acknowledge. Tyler and his crew help where they can and ultimately operate a bit like a nonprofit, but it's not until Kate enters the picture, joins their team, that they're able to actually fight back against the disasters that ravage their land, that they're able to take all of the tools at their disposal and focus it. They are able to fight for a better future, even in the face of a seemingly indestructible vortex. If the film teaches us anything about these instincts, it's to follow the science, follow a logical line of thinking that will lead you to a conclusion. And Chung puts that at the forefront of the film. That's really what it's getting at from an environmental standpoint. There's so much we don't know and are researching, and when presented with new information, we must be willing to pivot and adapt, because again, science isn't political. I think one of my favorite aspects of the film is how it explores the idea of science versus sensationalism and how that manifests itself in Kate and Tyler. Kate eventually uncovers the altruism behind Tyler's theatrics and winds up marrying Tyler's theatricality with her scientific discovery in order to destroy the tornado at the end. She comes to realize the malpractice of the private company she's working for that doesn't really want anything to do with science, the clean-cut, seemingly friendly and honest group that appears to only want to help with the best interests of the people in mind, to which David Corns went. Superman reveals his true face during the climax, saying,
"I don't care about the people!"
in what is unintentionally one of the funniest lines of the year by virtue of the fact that it was uttered by Superman himself in Middle America during a tornado. Just incredible. Tyler might be a theatrical YouTuber who likes doing stupid shit on camera to elicit interest from people all over the place, but sometimes being a sensationalist, populist scientist is necessary in getting your point across. It's delivering important information through a more palatable outlet, which is sort of what Twisters as a film is doing. There is real danger at play in what they do, and there is merit to their findings. It's a film that emphasizes the importance of making science accessible to people so they better understand when capitalists try to come in and take advantage, and the people can better understand the issues they faced. Twisters isn't something that's going to reinvent the wheel. It's not even like the most profound thing in existence, but it does put a modern spin on a classic formula, that being the disaster movie, with such integrity and passion for filmmaking that it's infectious. I mean, this thing looks gorgeous. I mean, we haven't even talked about the cinematography, but this movie is shot so goddamn well. It's so visceral. It's why the 40X experience is as effective as it is. And most importantly, it gives us a look into the heartland of America. Something that, while embracing its disaster movie roots, embraces the romanticism of loving what you do. My only wish was that we had leaned into the romantic aspect of Kate and Tyler's relationship, because it was right there. That kiss at the end should have been there and it would have sealed the whole deal. Come on, guys. We all wanted to see it. It felt like the natural conclusion. It'll be the one note that Steven Spielberg gave to the producers and the filmmakers that I will never understand and I will never agree with. Is Twisters the blockbuster we wanted? No, but I think it might be the blockbuster we need. After last year, when Barbie and Oppenheimer not only created the movie event of the summer, if not the last decade or so, but also cleaned up the Oscars, it was clear audiences were ready for a change. They wanted something different than the MCU. Twisters is embracing that change with open arms. And yeah, it might not be making Deadpool and Wolverine money, what is, but it is offering people something different at the theater. It's offering them a throwback. It's offering them a good time. It's offering them a perfect summer movie experience. It's something that anyone can go see. You don't even have to be a fan of the disaster movie genre. You can just go watch it, get sucked up in the magic of it, and then walk away, with a bit more on your mind. And Twisters is something special, and I really hope that we continue to get more inspired efforts like this during the summer movie season. I feel that old school movie magic I've been craving, and if you feel it,